Shall we start? Good morning and hello everybody to our masterclass with Nicola Lusuardi. This event is part of a joint initiative of 15 European Creative Europe desks, the Filmförderung Hamburg-Schleswig-Holstein and Letterbox Film Production to strengthen European producers in developing their high quality series. My name is Christiane Siemann from the Creative Europe Desk in Hamburg. And although I would really prefer to see you all in person, I'm delighted that this room opened doors to so many people. Within 2 days, 500 places have been sold out. So this proves series is still selling. So now just 2 words on housekeeping. You are encouraged to ask questions during the whole talk. Please use the indicated chat tool so that my colleagues can curate your topics in advance. At this point, I would really like to thank Lukas, Britta, Greta, and Julia for making all this possible. That was a big effort. Thank you so much. This session will be recorded for publication on our website. So if you prefer not to be seen by name, make sure to hide it or make it anonymous. And please make sure that your camera and mic are switched off to guarantee a good quality of the stream. Thank you. And now I'm happy to welcome our guests for today. Nicola Lusuardi, well known for many internationally acclaimed TV shows and a pioneer in analyzing script writing for TV series. He will be in conversation with Timo Gößler, writer himself and lecturer at the Film University Babelsberg. A very warm welcome and thank you so much for going online with us. And before we get started, I'd like to leave the screen to our partner Helge Albers, the head of Filmförderung Hamburg-Schleswig-Holstein. Thank you everybody and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. Good morning.
Good morning, Nicola. Good morning, Timo. From my side, a very warm welcome, everybody. Welcome to Hamburg. It's a pleasure to see so many familiar faces and to also not see so many faces. We have 14 pages of Zoom participants, I see. So 500 people in your living rooms, Timo and Nicola. I've had the pleasure to watch a presentation of Nicola at EAVE a couple of months ago, or should I rather say it was a performance, I would call it. So I'm very curious to see how that translates into the digital space. I learned a lot when I saw it, and I'm very glad that Christiane from Creative Europe Desk took the initiative and invite Nicola to speak to everybody. I would like to thank the team of Creative Europe Desk and also the team of Filmförderung Hamburg-Schleswig-Holstein to make this possible. And I wish everybody a lot of learnings and a very fruitful 1.5 hours with Nicola and Timo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helge. Thank you very much, Christiane. Good morning and welcome, everybody. It's a great pleasure to moderate this talk with you, Nicola. It's so good to see you safe and healthy in these days. So how did you spend this past weeks? Like pretty much everybody else, watching hundreds of new shows?
Yes, but mostly making hundreds of hours of video conferences because maybe we are on the lucky side of the world in this moment because the work we do didn't stop during these weeks. Development in general, reading, writing, meeting people, even if not live, is something that we can do during these weeks. And I think we were really lucky not to feel how much it hurted staying locked down, and in Italy the lockdown was really hard to stand. And so I spent my time both in video conferencing and in watching new shows, of course, because you are 24 hours at home and the screen is the world for you.
Oh, absolutely. So you were and are part in the development processes of so many of the most extraordinary European shows. How would you describe what happened to the European series culture in the past few years? There was this big series revolution in the US decades ago. Are we witnessing now the European series revolution?
Yes, globally, I think definitely yes. I think that the big revolution that changed the industry and the market brought in Europe for TV series or expanded storytelling a new global mindset. And country by country, you are witnessing now really a rising of the bar of the quality in the content we produced. And this bar of the quality comes from many, many points of view. For example, we can see and we can write a variety of different kind of content that were maybe unthinkable in the single local market until few years ago. And this brings a new great challenge in terms of creativity. And so I think it's really a moment when the European system is challenged and is reacting to this challenge, and it's raising enormously the bar. I want to underline also that this is a great opportunity we have. It's a great opportunity from many points of view, individually or strictly, referring to us as a creative collective, means producer, writer, directors, commissioner, of course. We are, for the first time, with the opportunity to becoming global, for the first time, we have the opportunity to confront ourselves with the great classic of series, means with all the series we loved. We have the opportunity to create, develop, and produce stuff that aim to be comparable with the series that made us love the idea of creating this kind of great expanded storytelling. And so I think that, and so I think that this is a personal challenge that push us to really focus on the reason why we loved so much, what is the essence that makes great in terms of quality, in terms of specificity, the aesthetical experience you live watching a series, and to ask ourselves how to do the same or to do differently, but at the same level. And I think this is something great to live in.
And I wonder, actually, because of course, streaming has really changed the game all over the world. And I wonder if there's something like a universal, global kind of series narrative now, because you mentioned it, we all watch the same shows all around the globe. So is there also, let's say, a danger in losing an origin-based cultural identity in our stories, in the way we tell our stories, when we all have the same, let's call it, role model shows?
Honestly, I don't think so. I understand the fear of it. I understand if someone asks himself this kind of question. But in my experience, what actually happens is exactly the opposite. Again, we are talking about a great opportunity. For example, I think that we have the enormous opportunity in thinking ourselves global, the enormous opportunity to become clear about ourselves. I want to make a very stupid example. think yourself when you talk with someone that is from a different country, and you are speaking a language that is not your mother language, your mother tongue, okay? And so you don't master completely the language, but you have something important to tell. And you give your best in order, at least, even if you don't master completely the language, to communicate the essence of it. And in that moment, your brain, your mind, your soul is making a great work, the work of asking really yourself what is essential to communicate. And so I think that the challenge to become global doesn't mean losing yourself, but defining yourself and watching at yourself in a way that let you divide what is really important, what is the core of your identity, from what is less essential to communicate. And I would say also that this is not just a cultural opportunity, but even more is a political opportunity. I'm 50 years old. I am something more than 50. I own to a generation that grew up just watching American shows or Italian shows. Very few shows coming from other countries, very, very few. Today, myself and the people around me and my kids, everybody has the opportunity to watch shows, understandable shows, that come from very different countries. And God knows how much Europe needs to share more in terms of storytelling, in terms of emotion, in terms of identity issues. Because one of the problems we are living in since many years is the struggle we have in transforming this sum of different states that we call Europe in a real community, means in a collective of people that feel to own to something unique. And it's impossible to create a community without sharing a big storytelling, things, all the Western and not just the Western history, the collective identity, the identity of each community come from sharing great essential stories, recognizing themselves in essential stories. So what I think is, to wrap up shortly, what I think is that the opportunity to become global give us the opportunity to be local. That is a strange word, meaning I am myself completely. I deliver my own specificity, but I become able to do that in a language that becomes emotionally understandable by everybody. And this is an opportunity.
So what we also saw in case of production, that there are more and more international co-production now when it comes into series, and especially also transatlantic ones, unthinkable some years ago. So you have the experience with a transatlantic co-production, which became a huge world hit with a show from Sky Italia and Canal Plus, The Young Pope. You had this local showrunner creator, Paolo Sorrentino, a very strong artist on the one side, and then you have also such a series giant like HBO on the other side. So how work and what are the possibilities and challenges, also co-production, to work together over the Atlantic in finding something special?
I think in this moment in particular, in general, I presume that at least all the producer in the room now knows it. We have so many international players, of course, mostly American, but not just American, that are looking for content from different countries, that are really ready to, they all have their international department that are looking for content, ideas, talent, identities, voices, because they need deliver to the world, the global audience, the variety of the world. Variety is something that makes us rich. And once you are able to cultivate it, to grow it in the proper way, is something that make the entire world resound enormously. And of course, this comes from, and now I become a bit colder, this comes from a structural change in history. Think back 10 years ago. The biggest player in the world 10 years ago had in front of their eyes a potential audience of 1 billion and a half people, means United States plus Canada plus Europe and something more. Today, every player, because of the digital revolution, of the enormous change in the distribution of content, in the consuming of content, in the way people are now asking and consuming content, every player means you and me, in the same way that everybody can think everything, each content, each idea, as an idea that is looking for a potential audience of today at least 5 billion people. Mm-hmm. And very soon in the future, there will be 7. Soon means 10 years, 20 years. And this change a lot because we all can talk with potentially everybody, or we all can look in the entire community to pick all the people that want to share with us. And this creates a big room also for very niche projects, for very specific projects. Because once you are niche, if you design your niche on a basis of 5 billion people, this niche becomes big enough to be worth to be produced and cared.
Mm. So, as you mentioned, we have such a huge diversity in our series landscape on pretty much every aspect, like a different kind of format, genres, stories, characters, story areas, perspectives, narratives. How do we deal with that when we start the development process? Because for ages, it was always about being unique, being original. Can we be original, surprising, unique, or is in a way everything told already?
I think that in terms of originality, the challenge is bigger and harder, but because there are more people trying it. I have to say, if I look at the system, the creative environment 15 years ago and today, 15 years ago, I had access to very few content in comparison with today, of course. But the percentage of originality wasn't higher than now. And so being original is always a challenge, is always what we aim to. The difference today is that we have more opportunity to try to be original. There are a lot of room more, many commissioner, more players, more different, let me say, brand identity, looking for different kind of content for different audience, and this creates more opportunities.
I was in a lecture of you some years ago, and you said a sentence I could never forget, because you said originality comes from precision. Yeah. What do you mean by that? What's precision when it comes to development process of a series?
Originality is an extreme way to be extremely precise. Precise about what? I will try to tell it very shortly. The point is that your idea is an idea once you get what is completely new in your idea. And what is new and extremely urgent and important. And the development process is a process, means is something happening, working in time, is the process that is meant to focusing, starting from that idea, what is the core of his identity, and is the process that brings you to make all the decision you need to make in a development process. In a development process, everybody knows we have to make many decisions, to create a lot and to decide what is fitting, what is not fitting, and why. What is pertinent and what is not pertinent, and why. And every time you really analyze a great movie or a great series, because this is not about series, this is about art in general, every time you analyze the greatest show ever, means the show that are rooted in our imaginary, the show that everybody knows and everybody has so sticking inside their soul, everybody, you look at this kind of show, you look out, you can analyze, you can show, demonstrate that they are extremely precise, means that there is no character, no scene, no action, no stylistical choice that is outside a precise criterion of pertinency, means because this is about the theme of my idea. What are you talking about through this story? I'm talking about this theme. So development is making the strongest dramaturgical and stylistical choice possible in order to exploit the power of your theme. And as you are precise, as your show will be original.
And at the same time, which is really interesting, if you look around the international series landscape, so many things are done dramaturgically, which were kind of no-goes just a few years ago. I mean, you can introduce a main character if you want in episode 4, if it's working out. You know, your episodes can have different kind of length. You can switch in your tone if it's necessary, like The Politician, which was by Ryan Murphy. It was really, really strange because every episode had a different tone. This was one of the absolute no-goes, you know, in every book you can write about series development. So how would you describe that? Are there any rules or principles left, or are you in a way totally free to choose exactly the right thing to do for your show?
Okay, both. Both. Let me tell this. I don't like the word rule.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a word that, in my personal feeling, really help us to understand what are we talking about. Audiovisual storytelling is a very is an art with a great technical background, and so every time you deal with techniques, of course, you are tempted to think that there are many rules there. And in some way there are rules, but I don't like to call them rules because give you the idea that you have to do in a precise way, in that way. The word I like to use and what I do for myself are maps. I draw maps. And through my maps, I check what I check. I try to understand, and in my lectures, I use these maps, what happened, what happens mostly, and what happened mostly until now regarding the main dramaturgical institution. It doesn't mean that once you have a map, think a map of Europe in the 16th century. It's kind of Europe, but a lot more to check. So I like the idea of a map like something that define a territory, define a field, define something, but let you a lot to uncover, to explore more, that contain, and you don't know it, small villages and places that were never explored. So in some way, there is a lot of technique, and it's really important to know how do the series we love really work? Because once you don't know it, you hardly will be able to manage something original. You have to know in which one of my experience that get me crazy is meeting people that refer to series in a completely improper way because they simply watched the series they say to love. They watched it, and once you just watch it and you don't analyze it, you don't unbuild it, you don't destructure it in order to really understand how is it made, what is about, and bottom line, what it is. Once you don't do that process, you have just a blurred idea of it. You have just the memory of the pleasure you had in watching it. But this is an audience experience that, of course, is an important experience, but it's not a professional one. So I like maps, and I think that we have a lot to learn. And if we lack something in the continental Europe, is exactly the feeling that we need to study, learn, analyze, and train more in order to master the tools, to really know what is there, to really know when we talk about Breaking Bad, what exactly was Breaking Bad. The principle that let you understand how is it made is aesthetical core and structural and dramaturgical one.
And I also think that there's the other challenge we all have to learn much more, and it's much more basic. It's as I see it, it's more in the way what really is an idea for a series, and what is not just the idea for a maybe very long movie. Because,
yes, of course. I was just stepping in that because I wanted to sketch very few things that even in this time, that is time that challenge us to experiment a lot and to be free in our mind, to break the rules, to try different things and so on, there is something we need never to forget. And these four things in my thinking, maybe they are more, but these are the fourth that I'm pretty sure about. The first one is that a series is not a movie. Nothing really interesting came in terms of storytelling from series created following the pattern of a movie. Means that looking for a series is reminding that you are not creating a story. You are focusing and defining the premises and the principle that will let your concept generate a number, potentially an infinite number of stories. Creating a series means that the stories that you are creating need to be told through episodes or chapters. And you need to remember that each chapter has its own identity. And you need also to remember, and this is very, very important, that serial is rooted, I come back to your question about the changing of the tone and the language and so on. Serial is rooted on the principle of variation, not on the principle of repetition. The great series are a permanent exploration, a permanent renewing, raising the bar, and looking in which way, potentially episode by episode, you are refreshing the experience about the concept. And so there is this tension between the identity, the strong identity determined by the concept, and the ability of your serial catalog of episode to explore, variating and refreshing. And this is very important, for example, when you come to creating new seasons. I have seen many series fail because for some reason in the process, the creators or the commissioner or the producer thought the following season as the continuation of the form of the previous one. So the following season is not the continuation. Every time you go for a new season, you have to ask yourself what I give new, in which way I will variate, in which way the experience of this new season will be completely surprising without losing his identity. Mm-hmm. Then there is a second thing that will never change. And is that in dramaturgy, you create a story that works because they are urgent. These stories talk about something important from the human point of view. And so something that is not going to change is that you have to ask yourself what I'm talking about. Is this theme I'm exploring something I personally feel urgent? Do I have a personal, even if just a mental, strong experience? Am I really excruciating? Am I really struggling about the great thematical question, the pain of this thematical question to unfold, looking for an impossible answer? And is this something that is probably, and this is a bet always, is probably also for other people, means is human, and is the second thing that is not going to change. And the third one, sorry, and the third one, I will be very short. The third one that a lot of people forget a lot is that in any case, without any doubt, without any exception, dramaturgy is telling stories through conflict. Okay? Conflict. What makes specific the dramaturgical storytelling is the specialty to explore, represent, reveal through conflict. And the fourth one that will never change, and I'm becoming a bit colder, is never forget that even if this is a moment when a lot of original and niche things are permitted and asked, everybody looks for number. Everybody looks always for number. Of course, every player, every platform, every channel has his own numbers. The numbers of a classical mainstream free TV are different from the one of blah, 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 you know it. But never forget that we have to do our best to get our audience. And even if our audience is a small one, we have to do our best to get them, to hook them, to keep them with us, to be clear with them.
And I think this is all deeply connected also to the development of characters, because, you know, I think series characters are so special in a way. Out of your perspective, what would you say? What does a great series character really need? Which is also a very different kind of character as you need for movies, for example, right?
It's right. It's right. Yes, it's right. There are some differences that I think it's important to stress, and I never stress enough. A character in a movie, also a great character in a movie, tend to be 90% of the time, 90% of the time, 99, tend to be a character with an arc. We use a lot this metaphor of the arc. I would have a lot to tell about my feeling about this metaphor, but everybody understand if I say a character as an arc. An arc is something that starts from a point and imply a change. And so bottom line, the basic structure in a movie is always that you have a character that can change or not. And in case he is able to change, he will succeed. In case he's not able to change, tendentially he will fail. You can, inside this simple pattern, you have many nuances, but that's it. When you step in series, you step in a completely different kind of mindset, a different kind of aesthetical goal of the storytelling itself. Because you step from a pattern, the movie pattern, that tend to be a pattern where things ends, to a pattern that in the moment you create it and from the aim you have is not created in order to end. Of course you know that sooner or later you will end. But the real point is that the ending of it is not the most important thing you have to focus and define in the beginning, because your main problem is not how to end it, but your main goal is how to prevent it to end, how to avoid that it ends, how to make it last in a more and more exciting and challenging way. So this determines a lot of switch, because from an idea of changing, not changing, you switch on an idea of impossibility to change, because once the change is done, the story is done. And so you have to focus how to create it in order to let him desperately try to change and permanently failing. That's why, tendentially, if the character in a movie have an arc, the characters in a series have a destiny. It's completely different. In order to make a series work properly, your character has to be rooted in what doesn't let it change. And what don't let us as human beings change, essentially one thing: contradiction. A contradiction is inside conflict. So every great serial character is built up, is created as the allegory, let me use this word, of a great unsolvable conflict. Something that keep you as human being permanently struggling. And this is an experience everybody has. And that's why, yes, everybody knows inside.
Yeah, but
yes, sorry.
And I think the difference is to the characters we had in series also ages ago, that it's not so much about identification with the character anymore, but it's much more about the empathy. That you really, you really see this character, which is a complex character with many layers in this character. It's not about that I have to identify with this character, but I can feel it, what this character is going through. Would you agree that it's much more about empathy these days?
Is a way I completely get what you mean. I tell it in a slightly different way, but the idea is the same. Because I think that something we have always to keep in mind is that a great character is not someone with whom you have to agree, but is someone with whom that you have to emotionally understand. This is the reason why we were able to feel close to so many bad guys in great series, from Tony Soprano to Walter White to Peaky Blinders and so on, or Dexter. You, in some way, there is a level of identification that is deep here, because your soul, your mind is mirroring something that you emotionally understand. I know the condition of that guy. And this is something that is important to develop for every character in your show, because it's the only way to make each character worth to be told. If you think, for example, to that kind of show that I call arena-driven, where you have, like Game of Thrones, you have an arena that is a battlefield, that is a warring place, that can be a metaphorical one or a literal one, and you have to share, and you have to bring your audience slowly to share with all the characters, even the worst apparently. The real point is that you have to be so open-minded and so sincere with yourself as a writer, as a developer, to understand where is the enter point that make me emotionally understand this human being, even in the moment when he's doing something that I don't agree with, that I wouldn't do. I don't want to kill that baby. But nevertheless, my ability of storytelling is making the audience going to the point that I can understand. And I'm afraid about myself because I can understand. But this is the reason that keep myself close to this human being, the character, I mean.
And you'll have to do that with pretty much every character, as you said,
yes,
right? So
yes,
I think supporting characters in this new generation of series are so much more important than they've been in the past, when they were more like stereotyped and there for a special tone or something. Now you have supporting characters who became the lead maybe in the season 3, and you can do that because of the complexity of even the supporting character. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yes, because developing a series is developing a source of multiple conflicts, and then the source of conflicts, where is it? And once you have the source, of course, from this source deliver you many, according with the kind of series, of course, you are developing many possibilities. And so then is exploring, and exploring is creating variation, not repetition. And so you have any strategy possible available to you. And among these strategies, of course, you have the strategy of changing the point of view among different characters. And every time you jump with your feet in the shoes of a different character, he becomes for a moment the character you are planning to make your audience share with.
So, Nicola, let's switch a little bit more to the process, more to the structures of the development in Europe, because I think this is from great interest for many people. These structures have changed or are in a changing process right now all over Europe, and pretty much everybody is geared to this US system of a writer's room, of a showrunner in front. And this system was developed decades ago in the US, and it's just working perfectly for the US. The speed of development is just extreme. The writing process is amazing. Why do you think, what is the core of this system, what makes it, at least in the US, so effective, also and foremost, when it comes to terms of quality? What do you think? Why is the system so good, so well working?
It's well working because once you have a strong creator that is able to understand that creation in itself is not what we had in our tradition the image of a single titan talking with God and delivering gold, once you understand that this romantic icon we stick to a lot is simply fake, and once you understand that the real point is taking all advantage possible from the richness of the world around you, that working in team deliver an enormous quantity of advantages, more creativities, more ideas, more testing of the idea, the discussion inside a good writer's room about the reason why of a choice, the reason to make it or the reason to avoid it, give to the head writer, that sometimes is also the showrunner, more element, more food for thought. And of course, managing a team, selecting a good team, managing a good team, empower enormously an incredible creative energy. And once you are able to use that energy without feel yourself suffering because, oh, maybe someone in my room had a good idea and means that is better than me. No, it's not that. It's a process. We live in communities, and of course a team needs rules. A team, in order to work properly, need rules. You need that someone is in charge of the choices, etc., etc., etc. But nevertheless, of course, it's astonishing, the consequences of it. The problem is that it's expensive. Mm-hmm. And in Europe, in many countries, we struggle a lot to follow exactly the same path, partially because it's really expensive. In an average American writer's room, you have all the writers in the room that are in exclusive for a frame of time that lasts many months, and so they are paid on a weekly basis to be in the room, and then they are paid for everything they will write. And so I'm in the room for 6 months, I write 2 episodes, and this of course makes it more expensive than what we are used or what we can spend for developing a series in Europe. And so there is this problem. Then there is also another problem, that is a problem of mindset, this glooming romantic icon that looms on us. And there is a training problem. Means that, of course, in that culture is completely a premise of any training process. In our culture, we are a bit late in considering the need to train our writers and director as well, all the people involved in the process, to work in that way. And so we are a bit late in considering it, and of course this bring consequences. Bring consequences.
And I totally agree with what you just said, and especially when it comes to using the terms, because a lot of terms are, as I see it, I don't know how it is in Italy, but as I see it in Germany, are sometimes used more than labels. So, you know, nobody is a head writer anymore. Everybody is calling himself a showrunner, not always knowing exactly what a showrunner really is. So how would you define showrunning? What's a showrunner?
This is a question that everybody asks himself, because showrunner doesn't exist. You don't have even a credit of showrunner, no? It doesn't exist the credit showrunner in the American system. A showrunner, but when you think to the core of it, and when you meet the real showrunner, a real showrunner tends to be 90% of the time a writer. someone coming from a training and a professional experience as a writer. And this is because expanded storytelling rely a lot on the quality of storytelling itself. And so if you have to manage 24 hours of something, of course, the priority is do whatever it takes to bring your people for 24, your audience, I mean, 24 hours, your audience, to keep them in the show. And so the strategy in storytelling became central, and these tend to be mostly central in it. And so a showrunner tended to be a writer grown up with strong experience with a plus. And this is the plus able to make a difference. I would say 2 plus. 1 plus is the easy one, because this writer growing up in his experience is also a person that slowly make experience of all the problem or the creative problem related with production, okay? And so grow in knowledge, skills, tools, and experience related with creative production. But the second plus, that is the most important one, and is the most underestimated one, is that a showrunner is a writer able not just to write a story, but to write an aesthetical project. And once to read the page of a script, and I read a lot, I have to read a lot, and this makes me very lucky, from many different countries. When you read the page, the vibe on the page of an author that is ready, or is ready to run his show, the difference is that you don't have just dialogue and description on the page, that kind of very dry writing that we inherited in our tradition. But you have a vibrant page that that is written, pay attention, from the point of view of the aesthetical and emotional experience that the script plan for the audience. It's completely different to write down just your story, description and dialogue, or putting yourself, keeping the mindset of writing the show in the way he will deliver emotion and beauty. This makes the difference. Once you have it, once you become able to write down your aesthetical project, means that your writing is mature, means that you start to be the person that can deliver, run the show.
So when it comes to the staff writers or to the writers in general in the room, what would you see are the biggest challenges for them sitting in the room, having a head writer or showrunner over them? What's the challenging thing, especially for, let's say, European writers, if you can say it that way?
I think that the biggest challenge is it has to do with the psychology and mindset, and has to do with never taking it personally. Never think that the debate in the room is a competition. And never think that if your idea is not the one that is picked up for a precise scene or a precise turning point, this is a personal problem. You are there in order to create the flow and to give energy to the flow of creation and to the flow of thinking about the creation. And so this is the first challenge, means feel yourself a part of a team. And the second challenge is understanding yourself in the team. That is really important, because each team is made by human beings. And of course, each of us, also when we are writer, bring with himself certain attitude. And so screenwriting is a way of writing that keep together many, many layers. You have structure, emotion, images, you have many, many things. And of course, every screenwriter is able to manage all this level, but every screenwriter as a human being will be naturally more obsessed by the structure or more obsessed by the emotional moment. There are these writers, for example, that can be really useful, that feel that they want that scene, even if they don't know how to get to that scene. And the guy that obsessed with structure tell them, yes, okay, but how we can go there? But no, I don't mind. The point is that it's so strong that we need it. And so this dialogue, this ability to be yourself and to understand yourself in the group as part of something that slowly has to grow up as a natural and beautiful things is the big challenge. But I think that I have to say that this was a problem more for the older generation of writers. I meet a lot of people under 40, I say in general, under 45, that got in the last 10 years more and more used to understand the point of working in that way. And so I think that in terms of mindset and culture, we are really overcoming this problem. What we still miss is training and money.
And when it comes to this process of creating a writer's room, I mean, I've been asked that for many, many times, you know, how to find the right persons for the room. How will you know if this is working with these, let's say, 5 or 6 people? What are your experiences? When you in the process of creating a writer's room or part of a writer's room, you know, how can that work out that, you know, these 5 or 6 people will be the perfect ones for the show?
This is harder to say because it's like, this is a kind of problem that an head writer or a creator that has the responsibility to start the development of his idea, often together with his producer, or sometimes just the producer, sometimes in a dialogue with commissioner. The real point is, let me say this in a apparently lateral way, is making a cast. It's like casting actors. You need a strong feeling about your project, your idea, and you have to find each of the people in your room in order to fulfill the specific talent and attitude that you need in order to get the nuance, the stylistical and aesthetical nuance of your project. And same time, of course, you have to fulfill all the function you need in a writer's room. Because one of the biggest danger in a writer's room is creating an echo chamber. Creating a room where you pick just writers that can mirror in yourself, you can mirror in them, and everybody say, yeah, this idea is great, this idea is great, and nobody is able to create a constructive dialogue and really develop. This is a great danger. And so you have to be aware of what you need. You need that everybody can connect with the concept you have, means with the theme, the aesthetical experience, and so on. And you need also to create a variety, to create, to have all the technical function in there. You need the guy that is permanently skeptical about things and asks question until becoming really disturbing. But it's important. You need the guy that is obsessed with structure and push you always to find the right things in structure. You need the other one that is really emotional. And you need, that is so important, having someone able to keep order. Because after 4 weeks of writer's room, you sometimes have 120 pages of notes. And if you don't have the guy that is able to keep the store of ideas in a precise order, you lose a lot of time and a lot of good stuff.
So we'll open up very shortly to the audience and to questions from the audience, but maybe one final question for now. This American model of a writer's room and other development structures, that means that, you know, it's written, it's produced, it's post-produced, and it's screened at the same time. So there is a deep connection between these several kind of processes, which are different in Europe, you know, when you write, then you produce, and so on. So could this be also a strategy for Europeans, let's say, to put that more stronger together, to have more parallelism in the structures?
In some way, I have to say that also in United States, the growing of content that are not anymore for the classical scheduled free TV switched a bit the model. Means that also in United States you have now series that are completely written and then completely shot. Nevertheless, in order to raise the average quality and the average ability of all the people involved, I wish a lot that in general we would try to involve people more and more in each stage of the process: writing, prep, shooting, post, having the biggest number of people possible that can keep track and can be involved, because being part of each step of the stage raise a lot your awareness, your open your mind about the deep nature of this art we create. That is audiovisual art. It's not just writing, it's creating a show.
Yeah.
Showrunner is the people creating the show, not just writing it.
I see. So I would say I look at my colleagues, Lucas and Julia. I guess there are some questions out of the audience. Would you maybe just start with them, please?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. You guys posted a lot of different and very engaging questions on Slido. And the most popular one is actually the one about the maps you use, Nicola, for your storytelling. Is it okay for you to share a map or tell us where we could find an example?
It's complicated, and unfortunately it takes time. It's something I do when I'm invited for a masterclass. I normally go with my maps, and I need a big screen, but my maps takes hours to be explored, because I'm working on my maps for many hours. And so my main maps is the biggest one is the one where I map the main serial paradigm, and I sketch the main family of series. And these main family of series are related with the main source of conflict we have. And so I have a map for the character-driven series that are a specific family of series. So there is a lot of confusion around in the real meaning of character-driven, because people tend to think that character-driven means just having beautiful character, like if you can have a series with ugly character. It's not the point is that what is a character-driven series? And the second family is the arena-driven series. In the character-driven series, you have the single human being as a source of conflict. In this series, the character is delivering the conflict in the show. Means that this human being is the problem, the source of conflict. In the family of the arena-driven series, you, on the contrary, have a place that is a problem. if you look at The Wire or The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, the point is that you have a war place, you have a battlefield, and this changed completely the relationship between the arena and the character, and changed completely the development process, the way you develop an idea that is naturally character-driven, and the way you develop an idea that is naturally, for example, arena-driven, is completely different. And then I have my 3 main and 1 minor families that have many nuances, but I think in your process can help a lot in individual, your process, my process, help a lot in looking at my idea in the very early stage. Is like when you have a baby, you don't know him. You have to know him a bit. You have to experience the relationship with him. He's developing his own personality. As well, your idea has his own identity and personality. And one of the first steps is trying to understand which kind of idea is it, means which family of series potentially it owns. And it's a process. And once you get it, you start, the reward is that you start asking your idea the right question. On the contrary, when you ask your idea the wrong question, your idea doesn't answer and you fail your process or you waste a lot of time. This is what I can tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant.
The next question is, which European show has impressed you most in the last year and why?
What is my favorite show of the last year and why?
European one.
European show.
Do we consider UK still Europe?
Let's say yes.
Okay. In case, probably my favorite show of last year, and I'm just talking about season 1, was a Sex Education, probably, because it was because of many reasons. The ability to tell about sex in a so authentic and strong way, creating a very challenging structure in season 1, in season 2 a bit less, a very challenging structure, and managing it tonally and stylistically, even in very dangerous zone of storytelling. And so if I think to a season 1, but probably I'm forgetting something, I'm sorry, the best season 1 of last year in Europe was probably this one. There is also a German series that I loved a lot last year, 2 actually, Bad Banks and Beat, both were really nice.
Yeah. The third question is concerning writer networks. Which writer networks would you suggest for European collaborative projects?
Which, sorry?
Writers networks. Networks for writers.
Networks to writers? What do you mean with networks?
Networks.
Networks means broadcaster?
No, I think networks of writers.
Which network of, I'm really, really sorry, I don't get the question. Yeah. Which networks of writers I would suggest?
Yeah, for European collaborative projects. This was voted 17 times.
17 times with networks of writers. I don't understand exactly what do I mean. I have a personal network of writers, means I know a lot of writers, but I don't know established networks of writers. Are there any? Or maybe I ask the people asking this question to define better what do they ask, because I don't get the meaning.
Maybe the person who posed the question can write it on the chat here. I think, yeah, it's like institutional networks like ACE or EAVE.
Ah, from that point of view, means institution for training.
I think that's where it said it, yeah. We just covered this one sentence.
Okay, for writers.
Yeah, for
Training
European
program,
collaboration.
right.
For European collaboration.
For European collaboration.
Yeah.
There are not so many actually. There is some program in Europe around that create networks like Serialize in Berlin, for example. That is a program I participate to as a lecturer, and I have to say that there, for example, they made a great work during these last 7 years to create a common culture among young writers, kind of young. Young means between around 30, 35, coming from different countries and creating a common language. And a lot of them, I would say maybe all of them, are working a lot around. And but the same, I would say, also for other program in France. Both La Femis and Series Mania are making a great job about it. I know that in Germany you have a lot of program in Munich, in Cologne, and so it's hard to okay. I was not part of all of them enough to decide what is the best of them. I know that looking at the program they have, looking them at the schedule they have, that the principle they are built from are the right one. And so I think that in particularly in Germany, you have a lot of opportunity.
And maybe let's not forget also when it comes to Eastern Europe, like Midpoint has this TV Lounge.
Midpoint, of course.
Which is an amazing program.
They are making a great work. Thank you. Sorry for not for forgetting it, but Midpoint.
EAVE, yeah.
EAVE, of course, but EAVE was already quoted there. EAVE is it's great. EAVE is the best training program for producer actually in Europe, and so.
So let's go to the next question. How's a horizontal series not just a long movie? What's serial about it instead of being just a long movie? Thanks.
Okay, this is a question that would ask a long answer, but actually, every time you understand that you are creating your episode 1 like the first act of a movie, you are in the wrong direction. Every time you are thinking that your character has to reveal himself at the midpoint of the season, you are in a dangerous field. The greatest serial character reveal themselves in episode 1. The real point is that when I told is a destiny, the real point is that look at every great character. Everything happens in episode 1 because episode 1 is the revelation. What happens with certain characters is that they refuse this revelation. They resist. If you look at Walter White or Don Draper in Mad Men, the real point is that they need 7 seasons to accept what they are. And I could go through it a lot, believe me. But if you look at the episode 1 of both these series, like Dexter, like Peaky Blinders, everything you need to know about the character is already there. And so the real point is that what you call serialized, means completely horizontal, is not an horizontal line. Is in which way each episode will deliver one single core, essential conflict, able to challenge and re-challenge in narration, and re-challenge in narration my character. Every time you look at your process like this is like a movie, act 1, act 2, act 3, you are in a dangerous place, always. Even if, of course, during a season you have a raising of the bar, but it's not the same of the classical arc. The most boring episode 1 are always the one that feel like 55 minutes of act 1 premises. Oh gosh. Walter White kills cold blood in episode 1. And when he comes to kill, minute 40 around, when he comes to kill in episode 1, this is the third acting out of his violence in episode 1. Then the real show is that he's astonished by being able to kill. But the real point is that this man is able to kill.
Right, the next question concerns pitches. What elements should be in a serious pitch and how long should it be? Are there any other suggestions?
Regarding the format of a pitch, it depends on, it's not decided by you, but it's decided by the people listening your pitch. It means that if you pitch in front of an audience in a market like C21 or Series Media or Berlinale, they tell you you have 5 minutes, 7 minutes, or so on. If you meet someone and you have to make an elevator pitch, it's better if you have the ability to tell your idea in 1 minute or 30 seconds in a very hooking way. What is important in a pitch and preparing a good pitch is an hard work. And developing your pitch is an essential part of any development process. Why? Because once you have few minutes, a small time to communicate your idea, you have desperately to focus on the identity of your idea, the reason why is important and urgent, and the reason why is original. Because every time you pitch for 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, what you are basically doing is making the people in front of you being available potentially to spend 10 to 50 million euros in producing your show. And so your pitch has to not close the door to the hypothesis of spending 20 million euros on your show and raising the wish of reading more. Okay, you pitched me, do you have a pilot? I wanted to read your pilot. And so the real point is identity, the reason why of this show, the reason why is urgent for me and is urgent for you, and why it's original.
Okay, then we come to the next question. What are your criteria for a screenplay you wrote to be ready for being produced?
This is an hard question because this question can be rephrased in this way. When a show is greenlighted for production, and I'm not in a role where I greenlight the show for production because I'm not the person in charge of greenlighting in any of the institutions I work with or I have worked with. Of course, the moment when the green light comes from commissioner, essentially, in particular for production. And it comes from, and this is, of course, tricky, flexible, and varying time by time, the moment when the broadcaster, the platform, the people, the main financier of the show feels that the script address all the basic need that, from their point of view, needed to be addressed. And in the moment when the need of the player financing the show match completely with the need of the producer and the creator of the show, because otherwise it's difficult. They have to find a way to match. In that moment, it comes a green light. But it's not objective. It's something happening in the process, and it changes in any time.
Next questions are, can you see any structural issues in the European or Italian if you prefer, industry that is hindering new talents from emerging and telling new stories, new perspectives?
If I see any structural problem in the industry.
Yeah, European or Italian?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot, but I have to say, a lot also because, and I started to appreciate it in the last 2 years, 3 years, also because each European system, and the Italian one in particular, is small. Small. And you don't have to underestimate the consequences to be small. Are similar to the consequences to be few. In Italy, we have few producers, few broadcasters, few talent. They are not so many. When I make an example, when you are looking for example, an English writer for an important project, you have an incredible list. There are many, an incredible list of writers considered A-level. When you look at, of course, I'm talking in case you have to develop something that is international, costing a lot of money, and so you need that all the talent involved grant in some way the people financing. It's not an issue of just being good or not, is that there are rank in the industry that let package each kind of project according with the market that project aim to. And when you look at the list of considered A writer in a country like Italy, they are enormously less. And so this is a problem, an enormous problem. This comes from two things. We are small means that the global money in the system, the local money in the system, because what makes the difference, what made the difference for decades was the local money. How much Italy puts in this kind of content. So you make the sum of all the investment by any player and you have the sum, okay? And the sum of it, it's small compared with the possibility of a global market. And once you don't have a lot of money, you can't afford a lot of risk. Because I see a lot the difference between players that have very small money to invest. The kind of fear they have to make mistake is enormously higher than the kind of fear or the easy attitude that I see sometime in the biggest player in trying new talent, new ideas, because a single failure is not impacting so much as in case you have a small slate, a small money to invest, and so on. And so, yes, we have a structural problem, and the answer to this problem is pushing as we can this industry to become European, to stop to be national and to become European. Because when you look at Europe, you have 500 million people living here and potential becoming a single community. Okay? And we have some players that can try to become international, and we need these two layers, the local player, the smaller player, but also the one that can invest more money, that can bet more, because it's essential as a source of energy for scouting talent and ideas. Even if I want to say to all the young people in the room, I don't know how many they are, that in comparison with 15 years ago, there is enormous more room now for young talent and new ideas than 15 years ago. 15 years ago, everybody in Italy, for example, was hired for writing a specific kind of stuff. Good, not good, don't mind. But the point was that we had a very homogeneous kind of content. Now, in the last year, I have seen a lot of young people, young talent, stepping in the system, bringing their ideas, and more often than before, being produced.
Okay, do we have time for another question?
Yes.
Okay, then there's a question about writers' rooms. How is a good writers' room structured?
Of course, also in this case, you don't have a rule. Is an issue of it's depend on the creativity of the people deciding the room. Means probably the head writer, the producer, sometimes also the commissioner, to understand, according with the nature of the series, the kind of task you have to selecting the right people. And of course, as I told before, because this was also, this question is similar to the last question Timo asked me before. And then, of course, you have to take care of creating a room of people that are fitting right for your project, and same time creating inside the room the variety, the biggest variety possible of different function. You have to choose among the people right for the series you are developing. You have to choose them in the more different way possible, with the more different attitude possible. The people more emotionally reacting, the people more obsessed with structure, the people more obsessed with order, the people, and then depends on, for example, if you are writing something that is supposed to be comedy or humoristical, you need at least one that is the guy of the punch. And no matter if he's not completely not able to create the structure of an episode, but he's delivering the funny moment, and so on. It's there is not a single rule. You need the mindset that let you understand what your show need on one side, and which kind of function, human function and intellectual function can help you to fulfill all the need of your show.
I think we must come to an end slowly, but just to have some final questions, there's one question coming up in the chat as well. What are the really first important questions? You talked about important questions you should ask yourself in the development process. So could you give examples for these very first questions you have when starting the development process, when coming up with a series idea?
Okay.
These questions.
These are two, and I will stick to these two because are the one you don't treat. One is what is really new in my idea? In this idea, can be my idea or an idea I am, what is really new? What will make the show that I develop from this idea unique? Impossible to confuse with other show. Defining and focusing on what is really new is always a task and a challenge. The second main question in the beginning of a development process is, where is the source of the conflicts? Means that, and this brings to my map of the main family of series, means what is the engine that will deliver conflict in the show? The source. What is a problem? This is the idea I have. Inside this idea, what is the entity that is destined to keep on delivering the problems, the conflict that will let me tell a lot of stories in this story? And the third one, and the most difficult one, because it takes a lot of time to be focused, is what I'm talking about. What is the theme? What I'm really talking about when I tell this story.
So maybe as kind of a final question, as you know, in the US, not just a few people say, well, the golden age of television is over. Breaking Bad was kind of the peak, and that's it now. What do you think about, let's say, the golden age of European series? Is this kind of a bubble, or will this go on for ages?
No. I don't think it's a bubble. I don't think it's a bubble because I presume, of course, I don't have answer, but my feeling is that we as human beings, we need storytelling. Storytelling in any format, 90-minute storytelling, 6-episode storytelling, 25-episode storytelling, 2000 season storytelling, no matter, we need storytelling. And we need storytelling that let us mirror in it. And we have a ground of 5 billion people at the moment that just connecting with the digital environment can look for the storytelling they like. I think that this idea of a bubble is more a perception of quantity related with the existence of the digital environment that overflow us than a real issue, objective issue of we are producing too much. I don't think we are producing too much.
So this is really an inspiring final quote, I'd say. We could go on talking and listening to you for hours, of course, Nicola, but we'll have to make a point now. Thank you so much, Nicola. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much, of course, Creative Europe Desk Hamburg and Filmförderung Hamburg-Schleswig-Holstein for making this event possible. And thank you all for listening. There were so many people, even if we couldn't see you all. Pretty much everybody of us experienced the necessity and the importance of series even more in the past weeks. So let's really hope that absolutely nobody will ever forget that series, as all arts and all culture, are systemrelevant, as we say in Germany. So have a great day. Thank you very much, Nicola. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.